During a family will reading, my husband's face lit up when he heard, "You're getting the vacation home." But my sister stood up, slammed down a folder, and said, "Not after he took Dad's savings." I turned to him and whispered, "You said that money was for our baby." He couldn't speak. My name's Monica Lowell. I'm 42, live in Asheville, North Carolina, and work as an interior designer. I like antique wood, early morning fog, and drinking coffee in silence before the rest of the world wakes up. I've been married to Henry for 8 years, or at least I was. I'm not even sure what to call it anymore. My dad, Robert Hale, passed away 3 weeks ago. Just didn't wake up one morning. No warning, no symptoms, nothing. I still hadn't really processed it when we got the call from his lawyer. Apparently, my dad had arranged a formal reading of his will. No digital files. No PDFs. Just a sit-down, pen on paper, old-school session. That was Dad. Straightforward and structured. So, that Friday, I got dressed like I was going to church. Black blouse, jeans, low boots, minimal makeup. Henry wore his usual navy blazer over a gray sweater, like he was heading to a client pitch. He always dressed like he had something to prove. "You sure you're ready for this?" he asked as we pulled out of our driveway. "I don't think it matters," I said, watching the blue ridges blur past the car window. "It's not about being ready. It's about showing up." The lawyer's office was an old Victorian just off Charlotte Street, converted into a tidy little firm run by Harper Colburn. He'd been our family's attorney for decades, dry voice, silver hair, and a constant scent of tobacco even though he'd quit years ago. Inside the conference room, my mom and sister were already seated. Nora sat with her arms crossed, eyes sharp and tired. My mother, Miriam, looked like she hadn't eaten in days. There were faint bruises under her eyes, and her hands trembled slightly as she poured herself a glass of water. Harper stood when we walked in. "Monica, Henry. I'm sorry for your loss." "Thank you," I said. Henry gave a solemn nod, but his eyes flicked around the room like he was already sizing it up. We all sat. The table was cluttered with manila folders, a few glasses, and a dusty leather-bound binder that must have been the will itself. Harper didn't waste time. "I'll be reading directly from Robert Hale's final testament, as witnessed and notarized last August." He cleared his throat. "To my wife, Miriam, I leave our home and all personal belongings within, to be hers in full, with no restriction." My mom gave a short, silent nod. "To my daughters, Monica and Nora, I leave the joint sum of my savings account, to be divided equally after taxes and outstanding debts." My stomach tightened. I didn't know how much was in there, but my dad had always been careful with money. I figured it was enough to help pay down the IVF loan Henry, and I still had. "And then, to my son-in-law, Henry Lowell, I leave the vacation property in Sapphire Valley, including deed, contents, and ownership of all structures on the land." I swear, I felt Henry's whole body shift beside me. He sat up straighter. Smiled. Not a big grin, but the kind of smirk someone gives when they think their patience finally paid off. He even leaned forward, like he wanted to make sure he heard it right. The vacation home was sacred ground to us. A cedar cabin tucked away near the lake, quiet, breezy, always smelling of pine. That house held decades of memories. It was where Dad taught us how to fish, where we sat around the fireplace listening to 70s rock, where Nora and I carved our initials into the railing when we were teenagers. I was about to say something, anything, when Nora stood up. "Harper," she said, voice tight, "don't go any further." Harper looked up, startled. "Excuse me, I can't just sit here and let that happen," she said. She reached into her tote bag and pulled out a thick manila folder, slapped it down onto the table so hard that Mom flinched. "Not after he took Dad's savings." Silence. You know the kind of silence that fills a room and chokes it? Like someone just sucked all the air out? Yeah, that one. I turned to her slowly. "What are you talking about?" Nora didn't look at me. She looked directly at Henry. "You want to explain it?" she asked him, brows raised. "Or should I?" Henry shifted in his chair. His eyes darted to me, then to Harper, then back to the table. He didn't say a word. So she opened the folder. "Here," she said, pushing a set of papers across the table toward me. Dad had $258,000 in his personal savings at the start of August. By the end of September, it was down to $3,800. I blinked. "What?" She tapped a highlighted line with her fingernail. 6 wire transfers, each one for over $40,000, all to a business account under Lowell Design Solutions. I stared at the words. I knew that name. It was Henry's freelance business. He started it 2 years ago when he left his architecture firm in Atlanta. I always thought he was making enough to keep things afloat. You said we didn't have any clients, I whispered to him. You said that's why we couldn't afford another round. He still didn't speak. You said the clinic needed full payment. That we had to choose between starting the process or waiting until we saved more. You said you'd already put down the deposit. Monica, he finally said, reaching out to touch my arm. I pulled back like he'd slapped me. You lied to me? I asked. My voice cracked halfway through. All those nights I cried because I thought it was me, because I thought I was the reason we couldn't try again? I was going to pay it back, he muttered. When? Nora snapped. After you got the deed to the cabin? Or after Mom passed and you sold the house too? That's enough, my mother said, standing up. She looked exhausted. This is not the place. I think it is, I said quietly. I think this is exactly the place. We drove home in silence. I stared out the window the entire way, replaying every lie in my head like an echo chamber. He parked the car and turned off the ignition, but didn't get out. Monica, he said finally. I didn't take it from him. I asked. He offered. No, he didn't, I said. Because if he had, he would have told someone. Me, at the very least. He believed in my work, Henry said. He said he wanted to help me get back on my feet. That's why he left me the cabin. You said the money was for our baby, I repeated. My voice was hollow now, like I didn't even recognize it. I panicked, he said, finally turning to me. I thought if I could just land one more contract, one big job, I could pay him back and we'd be fine. I didn't want to look like a failure to you. You are a failure, I whispered. But not because of your business. Because of what you did to my father. To me. He looked like he'd been punched. That night, he slept on the couch. I locked the bedroom door. By the next morning, Nora had already emailed Harper to request a formal hold on the will execution, citing financial misconduct. Harper agreed. My mother stayed quiet, but I could see it in her face: disappointment, disbelief, shame. As for me, I started collecting evidence. Bank statements, email threads, voicemail recordings. I became my own private investigator, piecing together what Henry had been doing behind my back. And with every piece, I realized something even worse. He hadn't just been lying. He'd built a life on those lies. The weirdest thing about betrayal is how normal everything still looks around you. The furniture stays in place. The coffee still brews. The dog still waits by the door at 5 for his walk. But you're not the same person anymore. By Monday morning, I'd gone from grieving daughter to full-time fact-finder. Henry left early. He said he had meetings. I didn't ask where. I didn't care. Instead, I poured myself some coffee, sat at the dining table, and opened my laptop. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. All I knew was that there had to be more. More signs I missed. More things he lied about. I started with our joint bank account. Turns out he'd withdrawn over $12,000 in cash expenses over the last 6 months. He told me it was for clinic visits, medication, transportation. But there were no receipts. No invoices. Just vague descriptions, consulting, materials, admin costs. Then I dug into the LLC. Lowell Design Solutions had no active clients listed. No website updates in a year. No new invoices since last spring. He'd been operating off reputation and fumes. Worse, he was behind on his business taxes. Over $18,000 owed, with penalties. I felt sick. I picked up my phone, hovered over his contact, then put it down. Instead, I called Nora. You busy? I asked. No. What's up? You want to come over? I have something to show you. She was at my door in under 20 minutes. No makeup, messy bun, hoodie from her old med school. She hugged me in the doorway and said nothing. She didn't need to. We sat side by side at the dining table, sifting through every account, every document, every red flag I'd willfully ignored. At one point, she leaned back and looked at me with this face I hadn't seen in years. Not pity, something closer to sorrow. You're not stupid, she said. You're just someone who wanted to believe in someone too much. I defended him, I said, my voice small. To you. To Dad. To everyone. You loved him. That shouldn't be an excuse. No, she agreed. But it explains a lot. That night, when Henry came home, he smelled like beer and stress. You're still mad, he said as he walked into the kitchen, loosening his tie. I didn't look at him. Mad? No. I've moved past mad. He leaned against the fridge. Monica, you're making this a lot worse than it has to be. Your sister hates me. She always has. This isn't about Nora. I cut him off. This is about you. This is about how you looked me in the face and let me sob over a failed IVF round, telling me we didn't have the money when really you were funneling dad's savings into a dead company. He threw up his hands. You think this was easy for me? Do you think I wanted this? No, I said, standing. You chose this. Every day you didn't tell me, every dollar you took, every lie you let sit like poison in this house, you chose all of it. I was drowning, he snapped. I needed a lifeline. My father wasn't a lifeline. He was a person. He trusted you. Henry rubbed his temples. I told you. He offered. He didn't tell me, I said. He told no one. You know what that sounds like to me? A cover story. He walked out. I didn't stop him. A few days later, Harper called. Monica, I wanted to give you a heads up. Nora's moving forward with legal counsel. She's requesting a formal audit of the savings transfers. I wasn't surprised. I'll cooperate, I said. Just so you're aware, if it goes to court, anything in your name might be reviewed too. I understand, I said. And I did. I was done covering for him. That weekend, I stayed at Mom's. It was strange, sleeping in my childhood room again. The posters were gone, but the windows still creaked, and the air still smelled like old books and cedar. My mom didn't say much. She made tea, baked cornbread, and sat beside me while we watched reruns of old shows we used to love. At one point, during a commercial break, she spoke. I had no idea, she said quietly. About the money. About the business. About any of it. I didn't either. She stared at the TV, but her mind was somewhere else. Your father, he didn't like him. I think you knew that. I did, I admitted. I just thought Dad was being overprotective. She nodded slowly. He was. But also, he saw things you didn't. Henry called twice while I was gone. I didn't pick up. He left a message on the second try. Monica, please. I made mistakes. But I'm still your husband. We can fix this. I stared at the phone until the screen went dark. I wanted to scream. Or cry. Or throw the whole damn thing across the room. Instead, I saved the voicemail and sent it to my lawyer. Over the next 2 weeks, the cracks in Henry's world began to spread. The LLC was officially frozen under investigation. My father's financial records showed no formal authorization for the wire transfers. Harper found no documentation, no signatures, no notes, no verbal permission. Nothing. Henry's lawyer tried to argue that Dad had given verbal consent in a private conversation, but even that was flimsy. No witnesses. No emails. Just Henry's word against a dead man's legacy. And that's when the whispers started. Among friends, neighbors, former colleagues. People started remembering things. Things like Henry bragging about making a comeback. About an investor backing him quietly. About how he was going to own property outright soon. It was a Tuesday afternoon when Nora texted me, check your inbox. The audit results are in. I clicked the PDF. My stomach flipped. He hadn't just taken $250,000. He'd laundered over $300,000 through various accounts. Some of it went into the business, but some of it? Gone. Spent. On dinners, hotels, client meetings in cities he never told me he visited. I sat there, the numbers swimming before my eyes, thinking about every time I'd cooked dinner alone, thinking he was at a work event. Every missed call. Every delayed reply. Every sorry, babe, long day. Every lie. I sat in front of my laptop, that audit PDF open, fingers cold against the ceramic mug I hadn't sipped from in over an hour. I just stared. Line after line of expenses and account transfers, dates highlighted in yellow, all under Henry's name. Chicago, Denver, Atlanta, San Diego. He'd been everywhere. I scrolled down. It felt endless. He'd stayed at boutique hotels, places I only saw in magazines. Ordered $300 meals. Booked spa packages. The man who once told me we had to cancel our anniversary dinner because money was tight had apparently enjoyed deep tissue massages and room service champagne in Chicago on my father's dime. I called Nora. You read it? She asked. All of it. There was a pause on the other end. I could hear her exhale, soft and drawn out, like she didn't know what to say anymore either. I'm sorry, Mon. I let him into our family, I whispered. Dad trusted me. He trusted me. You didn't do this, she said gently. He did. It doesn't feel like that. Later that night, I was back at the house. My house. Or the one we'd shared. Henry was in the kitchen, reheating something in the microwave, like it was any other Tuesday. Like his entire world wasn't imploding. You saw it? He asked without turning around. Yes, I said. He took the bowl out and turned to face me. Before you say anything, let me explain. Explain? I laughed, cold and hard. Henry, you stole from my dead father. You lied to your wife. And now you want to explain. I didn't steal, he insisted, jaw tightening. He offered. Don't, I said, raising my voice. Don't you dare say that again. If you had any proof, you would have shown it. You would have had Harper digging it up weeks ago. His face twisted. I didn't think I'd need to defend myself from my own wife. And I didn't think I married someone who could do this to me. He slammed the bowl down on the counter. The ceramic cracked, soup sloshing out onto the tile. You think I wanted to fail? You think I woke up one day and said, let me ruin my life and hers too? I was trying to build something. Something of my own. I was tired of feeling like a kept man. I flinched. A kept man? Is that what you thought this was? You were my partner. You were supposed to be building with me. I was supposed to be a father, he said bitterly. You think I didn't want that kid? Every failed round broke me, too. But you held it together better. I had to pretend like I was the strong one, and the truth is, I was barely holding on. I stared at him, my jaw tight. You could have told me. I thought you'd leave, he said. I thought if you knew how deep in I was, how much I lost trying to make it right, you'd walk out the door. And instead, I said, you just made sure there was nothing left for me to walk out with. I didn't sleep in our room that night. I took the guest room, locked the door, cried into the ugly throw pillow I bought on sale from Wayfair. It was lumpy and stiff, and I cried into it like it owed me something. The next morning, I emailed my lawyer and said I was ready to move forward with separation papers. No hesitation. By Thursday, Harper called again. Monica, Henry's lawyer has requested a mediated settlement. I blinked at the phone. He thinks he's still entitled to something? They want to negotiate rights to the property. I stared out the window at the driveway, where his SUV was parked crooked, like always. Tell them no. Understood. That weekend, Nora and I drove up to the cabin. It was cold and damp, the wind weaving through the trees like a whisper. The porch creaked beneath our feet. The old swing still hung lopsided from the beam where Dad used to sit and read. I ran my hand along the railing where Nora and I had carved our initials years ago. I forgot we did that, she said, her voice softer than usual. You were so mad that I made my M bigger than your N. She chuckled. Because you did. It was twice the size. We stepped inside. The place smelled like dust and pine. The hearth was full of old ash, the couch still draped in the throw blanket Mom crocheted when we were teenagers. The photo of Dad holding a rainbow trout still sat on the mantel. His smile in that picture, it was the same one he gave when he made bad jokes and poured too much syrup on pancakes. I sat on the couch, hands in my lap. He loved this place, I said. Nora sat beside me. He did. And you know what? I don't think he ever meant for it to go to Henry. I've been thinking that too. We sat in silence for a while. I watched the trees sway outside the window. The same trees Dad had stared at every morning he made coffee in his robe. Nora broke the silence. So, what are you going to do? I swallowed. I don't know yet. Over the next week, my lawyer worked with Harper. Henry's assets were frozen. The forensic audit had turned up even more discrepancies, payments to fake contractors, overlapping charges between the business and our joint credit card, and one especially damning charge, a hotel suite in Denver for two. A two-guest suite. I didn't even ask him about it. I didn't need to. One night, I was at the grocery store picking up cereal and paper towels when I ran into one of Henry's old colleagues, Russell. We'd gone to dinner with him and his wife a couple times before everything fell apart. He looked surprised to see me. Hey, Monica. Wow. It's been a while. Yeah, I said, managing a polite smile. It has. I heard about everything. I'm sorry. Thanks. He hesitated, then leaned in. I don't want to stir the pot, but we all saw it coming. Henry, he got in over his head. I tilted my head. What do you mean? He was always chasing the next big thing. Talking big. Deals that never came. We all wanted him to succeed, but he couldn't stay grounded. I nodded slowly. Well, I said, gravity eventually caught up. It had been 3 months since the will reading. 3 months of legal filings, statements, silent car rides, and sleepless nights. 3 months of pretending to be okay while I slowly untangled myself from the mess Henry had made of our life. The emotional part had almost been harder than the legal one. I'd spent 8 years trusting a man who looked me in the eyes and promised me a future. 8 years believing he wanted to build a family with me, not con one out of my father's savings. But what Henry didn't know, what he never saw coming, was that I had learned to play the long game. It started with the audit. Once we confirmed the full extent of the financial fraud, my lawyer and Harper worked together to file formal charges: theft by deception, fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty. The court agreed to freeze all Henry's personal and business assets, including what was left of his company. He tried to fight it, of course. His lawyer argued that he had a verbal agreement with my father. But when Harper asked him for documentation, audio, texts, anything, there was nothing. Just Henry's word, and that wasn't worth much anymore. Meanwhile, Nora and I, who hadn't always been close, were now on the same side of a war neither of us started. One afternoon, sitting in Mom's kitchen, sipping peppermint tea, Nora looked up and said, "You know what I've been thinking?" "What?" "We let him have it. Let him think he's getting away with it." I looked at her, confused. "What do you mean?" "We don't go after the cabin in court. We act like we've accepted it. We don't fight the inheritance directly." I raised an eyebrow. "You're suggesting we let him keep the cabin?" "No," she said with a little smirk. "I'm suggesting we make him keep it." Henry was obsessed with that cabin. Obsessed with what it represented: status, legacy, the illusion of success. So we gave it to him, but not in the way he expected. After Nora and I dropped the property challenge, Henry claimed the deed through the court process. He signed papers, took photos, and posted them online like a victory lap. "Grateful for new beginnings," he wrote. "Dad Hale always believed in my vision." It made me sick, but I knew what was coming, because the audit revealed something else: unpaid property taxes on the cabin. Over 7 years' worth. My dad had been in and out of disputes with Jackson County over zoning lines, repairs, and back assessments. It was why he hadn't transferred it into a trust. The total? Just under $48,000 in penalties, legal fees, and overdue taxes. But here's the kicker: by accepting the property through probate, Henry legally accepted its liabilities, too. He didn't realize it right away. He was too busy showing it off on Instagram and pretending to be a mountain man in his new flannel shirt. But the bill arrived within weeks. And when it did, I got a text. "Henry, you knew about the taxes." Me, of course I did. "I designed the damn tax appeal letter for Dad 2 years ago. You didn't think to ask before accepting the deed." "Henry, this is insane. I can't pay this." Me, "You should have thought about that before you stole from my father." The second domino fell a few days later. One of the contractors Henry had stiffed, an old HVAC guy named Barry who Dad had used for decades, filed a lien on the cabin. Apparently, Dad had owed him $6,000 for unfinished repairs, but Barry never filed it while Dad was alive because they were friends. When he found out Henry had the property now, he filed the lien and shared a nice little quote with the local paper. Bob Hale was a good man. His son-in-law? Not so much. That quote ended up in a community blog. The blog post went semi-viral in our part of North Carolina. Then the Asheville Tribune picked it up. From grief to greed, architect under fire for mishandling father-in-law's estate. I didn't even need to give them a quote. The documents spoke for themselves. With his name dragging through the mud, the third and final blow came when his former firm in Atlanta released a quiet statement: "Mr. Lowell has not been affiliated with our company since 2022. We do not endorse his business practices or representation of past relationships." Translation: "We see you, and we're not backing you up." His LinkedIn disappeared that day. By midsummer, Henry was drowning. Not in silence this time, but in paperwork. Debt collectors. Lawsuits. A tax bill he couldn't pay. A cabin he couldn't sell because of the lien. A reputation so scorched he couldn't even land freelance work. And me? I was fine. Better than fine, actually. I had moved back into my family's house temporarily to help Mom downsize. Nora came over more often. We started cooking together again, mostly old recipes from Dad's spiral-bound notebook. My IVF journey? On hold, yes. But I was finally in a place where I got to decide when that chapter resumed. Not because some man told me what we could or couldn't afford. Not because I was waiting on someone else to show up for me. Because I had finally learned how to show up for myself. The last time I saw Henry was during mediation. His hands shook while he signed the final separation agreement. I got the car, the furniture, and full rights to our remaining shared assets. He got the cabin and every cent of the baggage that came with it. As we stood to leave, he looked at me. That face I used to love was pale, tired, lined in all the wrong places. "I never meant to hurt you," he said. "You didn't just hurt me," I replied. "You hollowed out something I was still building." He didn't answer. I walked out first. Some people want revenge that looks like flames. A ruined man, a shattered life, some grand finish where everyone claps. Me? I just wanted him to really know that I saw through him, that I outsmarted him, that I didn't need to scream or ruin him to win. All I had to do was let him walk into the fire he built for someone else. And then I got to walk away.